The lawyer's office was too small for the tension filling it. 5 of us sat waiting, myself, my 3 cousins, and Aunt Margaret, all there for the reading of my grandfather's will. No one had spoken to me since I arrived. Before we begin, Mr. Harrison said, adjusting his glasses, Mr. Chen wanted me to play this video. My grandfather's face appeared on the screen, filmed shortly before cancer took him. Even then, his eyes held that familiar sparkle of someone guarding an amazing secret. My dear family, he began, I know you're expecting a simple division of assets, but life, like the antiques I've spent 50 years collecting, holds deeper value than what shows on the surface. I smiled, remembering countless hours in his shop, learning to spot genuine treasures among the seeming junk. While my cousins pursued practical careers, I studied art history and archaeology, earning my PhD while helping in the shop on weekends. To my daughter Margaret and my grandchildren Michael, Diana, and James, Grandpa continued, I leave my investment portfolio, property holdings, and liquid assets to be divided equally. Aunt Margaret's tight smile relaxed. The estate was worth millions. And to my granddaughter Sarah, he paused, those eyes twinkling, I leave Chen's antiques, including all inventory, records, and associated documents. What? Michael burst out. The junk shop. Be quiet, Mr. Harrison said firmly, but the damage was done. Poor Sarah, Diana whispered loudly. Always was Grandpa's pet. Look where it got her. I kept my face neutral, though my heart raced. In the week since Grandpa's funeral, I discovered something in the shop that changed everything. If only I could decode it in time. The video continued. Sarah understands what I've spent my life building. She'll know what to do with the journal on my desk. My cousins exchanged confused looks, but I touched the leather-bound book in my bag. I found it last night, hidden in a secret compartment. After signing the necessary papers, I walked out without speaking to anyone. Behind me, I heard James. At least we got the real inheritance. If they only knew. Back at the shop, I locked the door and pulled out the journal. At first glance, it looked like a simple inventory book, listing items Grandpa had acquired over 50 years. But hidden within the entries were strange symbols, a code I'd started to recognize from my archaeological studies. My dearest Sarah, the first decoded page read, if you're reading this, you've already noticed the pattern. Every piece I collected tells part of a larger story, one that began in 1945 Shanghai. The next few hours vanished as I dove deeper into the journal. Grandpa's story was incredible. During World War II, he'd helped a group of scholars protect priceless artifacts from being stolen. After the war, he dedicated his life to tracking down these pieces, building his junk shop as a cover. But he discovered something else along the way. Evidence of an ancient Chinese artifact of immense historical significance. The worthless pieces in his shop weren't random at all. They were clues collected over decades, each one pointing to the artifact's location. My phone buzzed. A text from Professor Zhang at the Smithsonian. Found something interesting in those photos you sent. Can you bring the piece in for authentication? I looked at the small jade carving I photographed, one of thousands of decorative items in the shop. According to Grandpa's journal, it was actually a map key created during the Ming Dynasty. Another message popped up, this one from Diana. Hope you're enjoying your dusty inheritance. We're meeting with financial advisors tomorrow. Have fun with your junk. I smiled, thinking of the journal's revelations. Grandpa hadn't just been collecting antiques. He'd been assembling a historical puzzle that could rewrite our understanding of ancient Chinese history. A knock at the shop door startled me. Through the glass, I saw an elegantly dressed Asian woman I didn't recognize. Something about her bearing made me hesitate before opening the door. Ms. Chen, she said, I represent the Beijing Historical Society. We had great interest in your grandfather's collection for many years. My pulse quickened. The journal had mentioned others searching for the artifact, not all with good intentions. I'm sorry, I replied carefully. The shop's closed for inventory. Of course, she handed me a card. But when you're ready to sell, please call. We're prepared to make a very generous offer. After she left, I Googled the organization. It didn't exist. That night, I worked late, cross-referencing journal entries with inventory. Each decoded symbol revealed new connections. Grandpa had been brilliant, hiding an archaeological treasure map in plain sight, disguised as a modest antique collection. My phone buzzed again. Michael this time. Hey cuz, having second thoughts about the shop. I know a developer could take it off your hands, but price, cash deal. I thought of the woman from the fake historical society, of Grandpa's warnings in the journal about people who'd been watching the collection. Something bigger was happening here. My inheritance wasn't just a shop full of antiques, it was a 50-year quest that only I could complete. I looked around at the seemingly random collection of items, each one carefully chosen, each hiding its own secret. While my family counted their millions, I was standing in the middle of one of the greatest historical treasure hunts ever conceived. The jade carving caught the light, its ancient symbols now meaningful thanks to Grandpa's coded notes. Tomorrow I'd meet with Professor Zhang, beginning the process of authenticating what could be a discovery that would shock the archaeological world. But tonight, I had more journal pages to decode, more pieces of Grandpa's brilliant puzzle to assemble. The true value of things, he'd always told me, isn't in what others think they're worth, but in the stories they tell. I was about to discover just how right he'd been. The shop's old clock chimed midnight as I worked, surrounded by treasures disguised as junk, each piece part of a map that had taken 50 years to assemble. Outside, a car drove past slowly, the third time tonight. Someone was watching the shop. I smiled, thinking of my cousins counting their inheritance. They had no idea that Grandpa's greatest legacy wasn't in his bank accounts. It was hidden here, in his worthless collection, waiting for the right person to solve the puzzle he'd spent a lifetime creating. The Smithsonian's Authentication lab hummed with quiet energy as Professor Zhang examined the jade carving under specialized lighting. I sat nearby, heart pounding, as 3 different experts consulted in hushed tones. Extraordinary, Zhang finally said, looking up. This isn't just Ming Dynasty, it's from the Imperial Workshop. The craftsmanship, the symbols. But there's something else. He placed the piece under a specialized scanner. On the screen, hidden markings appeared, invisible to the naked eye. Your grandfather was right, Zhang said quietly. This isn't just decorative. It's a map key, part of a navigation system used by Admiral Zheng, his treasure fleet in the 15th century. My hands shook as I pulled out Grandpa's journal. There's more. Each piece in his collection. They're all connected. Over the next hour, I explained what I decoded. How Grandpa had spent 50 years assembling pieces of an ancient puzzle. The journal documented everything, where each piece came from, how it connected to the others, and most importantly, what they were all pointing to. The imperial seal of the Ming Dynasty, Zhang breathed, long thought lost during the fall of the empire. Your grandfather believed he found evidence of its location. Not just evidence, I replied. A complete map, broken into pieces and scattered across continents. He spent his life bringing them back together. My phone buzzed. Diana again. Family meeting tomorrow about the estate. Try to dress professionally for once. I ignored it, focusing on John's analysis. The jade piece was worth millions alone, but its true value was as part of the larger puzzle. Ms. Chen, Zhang said seriously, if what you're suggesting is true, this could be the most significant archaeological discovery of the century. But he hesitated. Others will be interested, not all with scientific motives. As if on cue, my phone rang. The woman from the Beijing Historical Society. Have you considered our offer? She asked without preamble. Still cataloging. I replied carefully. It's a big collection. Perhaps we could help. Our experts. I have to go. I hung up, turning to Jean. They're watching the shop. I've been since Grandpa died. He nodded grimly. The black market for imperial artifacts is enormous. If they suspect what your grandfather discovered. I thought of the car driving past last night, of Michael's mysterious developer friend offering cash. We need to move quickly, Zhang said. Can you bring the other pieces tomorrow? No, I realized, reading more of Grandpa's notes. We need to do this tonight. Look. I showed him a page from the journal. The symbols indicated a specific astronomical alignment happening tonight that was key to decoding the final location. Your grandfather was brilliant, Zhang marveled, using ancient celestial navigation principles to hide modern coordinates. We worked through the evening, analyzing each piece Grandpa had collected. Bronze vessels, porcelain vases, carved jade, each contained hidden marks that only made sense when combined with the others. My cousins called repeatedly. I let it go to voicemail. They'd never understood why I'd spent weekends helping Grandpa instead of pursuing real careers like them. Around midnight, Diana left an angry message. The estate lawyers need inventory documents from the shop. We're coming by in the morning to get them. Perfect timing. By morning, it would all be over, one way or another. As we assembled the pieces according to Grandpa's instructions, a pattern emerged. The coordinates pointed to an old temple complex outside Shanghai, specifically to a series of underground chambers not documented in official records. He did it, Zhang whispered. Your grandfather actually found it. My phone buzzed again. A security alert from the shop. Someone was trying to break in. The surveillance feed showed 3 men in dark clothing working on the lock. Behind them, a familiar car, the same one that had been watching the shop. They must have realized we moved the key pieces, I said. What they don't know is that Grandpa planned for this too. The last pages of his journal detailed a final failsafe. While the real artifacts were here at the Smithsonian, he'd left elaborate replicas in the shop. Good enough to fool casual observers, but worthless to serious collectors. I called the police, then my cousins. They needed to know what was really happening. Sarah, this better be good, Michael answered grumpily. Do you know what time it is? The shop is being robbed, I said calmly. But that's not the important part. Get everyone to the Smithsonian. Now, there's something you need to see. An hour later, my family arrived to find me in the Authentication lab, surrounded by experts from 3 continents participating via video conference. The pieces from Grandpa's collection were laid out in a precise pattern, revealing their hidden message. Is that? Aunt Margaret's voice faltered. That's the jade piece from the front window. The one your grandfather bought for $10 at a flea market. Worth approximately $8 million, John confirmed. But as part of this collection, documenting the location of the imperial seal. Priceless. I watched their faces as Zhang explained everything. Grandpa's 50-year quest, the intricate puzzle he created, the historical significance of what he discovered. The Smithsonian is prepared to offer $50 million for the key pieces alone, John concluded. But that's just the beginning. The archaeological expedition, the historical implications. Diana sat down hard. All those weekends you spent in that dusty shop. Grandpa was teaching me, I said quietly, not just about antiques, but about seeing the true value in things others dismissed. He knew someday I'd need those skills to finish what he started. James looked sick. The developer who wanted to buy the shop. He wasn't really a developer, was he? No, I confirmed. Just like the woman from the fake historical society wasn't really a curator. They were after this. I held up the jade piece. They just didn't understand that it was worthless without all the other pieces and without Grandpa's coded guide to using them. The police called. They'd caught the men breaking into the shop. International art thieves, already wanted in 3 countries. As my family tried to process everything, I opened the last page of Grandpa's journal. A final message encoded just for me. My dearest Sarah, by now you've discovered what I spent my life protecting. The money from the Smithsonian is just the beginning. There's a foundation set up in your name to fund future archaeological research. Your cousins got their millions, but you got something far more valuable. A purpose worthy of your talents. The imperial seal isn't just a priceless artifact. It's proof that history's greatest treasures are often hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone patient enough to understand their true worth. I'm sorry I won't be there to see you make the discovery official. But I know that every time you unlock an ancient mystery or help preserve our cultural heritage, a part of me will live on through your work. Take care of the shop. There are more treasures hidden in that worthless collection waiting for you to find them. And remember what I always told you. True value isn't in what others think things are worth, but in the stories they tell and the truths they reveal. All my love, Grandpa. 2 months later, I stood in the temple complex near Shanghai, watching as archaeologists carefully excavated the chamber Grandpa's map had revealed. The imperial seal, hidden for centuries, would soon see light again. The shop was still open, though now it was also a working archaeological research center. Every piece Grandpa had collected was being studied, revealing new historical insights. My cousins have finally understood the true value of my inheritance. It wasn't just about money. It was about preserving history, solving ancient mysteries, and carrying on a legacy that would outlive us all. The jade piece sat in a special display at the Smithsonian, its plaque reading, "Part of the Chen collection, proof that the greatest treasures often hide in plain sight." Somewhere, I knew Grandpa was smiling, watching his 50-year quest reach its perfect conclusion. He taught me to see beyond surface value, to understand that true worth often hides behind modest appearances. As for me, I had a lifetime of mysteries to solve, each piece in his collection holding new secrets waiting to be discovered. After all, that's what Grandpa had really left me, not just a shop full of antiques, but a world full of hidden treasures, each with its own story to tell.